Mayor Jacobs,
I'm here.
Committeeman Hickey,
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Mr. Leonard,
Here.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Here.
Ms. Orbana,
Here.
Mr. Walter,
Here.
Mr. Hurst,
Here.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk, sent to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News, and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on June 10th, 2021.
Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll open it up to the public, Janine, see if there's anyone present in the public that has anything that they would like to say that's not on the agenda. If you have any questions or comments?
I think that everyone that's on is actually for the applicant, but
Okay, you don't see any
I-
hands?
No, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Okay, I guess we can close it to the public. We have some minutes that we need approved. September 2nd. We've had an opportunity to look at those. And I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Jeff. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Does anybody need to recuse themselves from the second?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Minutes are approved for the September 2nd. We also have September 9th. We need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second him.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone need to abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Ann, okay? Minutes are approved. We have a resolution, Westfield Hall. We need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call for that.
We need a roll call. Janine?
Mayor Jacobs,
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Orbana,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. Resolution for Westfield Hall has been approved. And we can go right into our application for tonight. Chris Kohler.
Did we do our notice? Our public meeting notice?
Yes.
No, we did.
Yeah, we did.
In my mind. Sorry.
The roll call.
Right after roll call, we did. Okay, so we can begin our application.
Okay, thank you, members of the board, hearing our application tonight. I first note that a proper notice of this application was provided to the owners within 200 feet and published in the appropriate newspaper. This is a conditional use application for a cottage on 200 Spook Hollow Road. It's permitted in the R10 district in accordance with the conditions set forth in section 13-601.4A of the municipal code. Tonight, you will hear from our engineer, Ron Kennedy, who can tell you about how the proposal meets the conditions for the accessory dwelling structure. We also have the applicant here, should the board have any questions for him. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ron Kennedy, our engineer. We are expert engineer, and I'd like to have the board qualify him as an engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Pedalino. We'll just confirm for the record that the applicant has noticed in accordance with the municipal land use law, and the board has jurisdiction to hear this as a conditional use site plan application for accessory dwelling unit and any necessary C variances. And We'll swear in any witnesses, Mr. Pedalino. So anyone who will be testifying for the applicant, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name, and give us at least a business address.
Certainly. Ronald Kennedy, 265 Main Street in Gladstone, New Jersey, Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, and the board will confirm that the board recognizes and accepts Mr. Ronald Kennedy and his qualifications as a professional engineer and a professional planner. Please go ahead, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Pedalino.
So I'll give a quick overview of what we're talking about tonight. Actually, Janine, can I share the screen so I can park an exhibit?
Absolutely.
And I'd like to just say for the record, I'm not Mr. Pedalino. I'm Herschel Rose of Genova Burns, appearing on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Herschel. Sorry. The Zoom previously said. Okay, thanks.
I assume the board can see this?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, as was stated for the record, it is 23.2 acre lot on Schuylkill Road. It's block 13, lot 3. And the exhibit, Tom, will mark in as A1.
Yes, it's an aerial photo, I take it, or can you just describe it?
It is, Tom, it's actually the same sheet, but I put aerial on, so it's the same sheet, but it's a higher image on the aerial. So it's the project data overall site plan. I have today's date of October 7th, 2021.
Thank you.
And again, it is a copy of what we submitted to the board. It just has a higher resolution aerial in color that the board doesn't have. And its points of reference on this property itself is Schuylkill Road. My pointer is across the center of the sheet. From the left side is near the intersection of Long Lane and Larger Cross Road. And then it meanders through the corner of this property. And if it heads to the right, Schuylkill Road heads down towards Old Dutch Road. Larger Cross Road is generally off the left side of the sheet, and you can see one of the farms on the image off of Larger Cross Road near the Long Lane intersection. Property itself, and I'm going to zoom in a little, 23 acres. The main house is where the center of the lot, where I'm pointing to right now. The main house built, I'd say about 20, 25 years ago. Let's put it this way. When I did the approval with Frank, I still had not gray hair. So quite some time ago that we did the approval here. The improvements to the site itself is a 5-bedroom house. There's a pool to the rear. There's a driveway that goes out along the main section where I'm pointing to now, out to Schuylkill Road. There's an accessory driveway that comes around the left side on this sheet. And what is being proposed here is a accessory dwelling unit for a family member. There are 7 conditions in your ordinance, and the intent of this application is to meet all 7 of those conditions. And I'll go through those and spend a couple of minutes. So under the 13601.4, accessory dwelling units are permitted in the R10 zone in accordance with the standards that not more than 1 accessory dwelling unit be permitted on any lot. In this case, there's 1 principal house, and this is the only accessory dwelling unit. But the dwelling unit should be at least 600 square foot and no more than 1,200 square foot. And architectural plans have been submitted that we are under the 1,200 square foot. That on any lot containing both principal and accessory dwelling units shall be at least 14 acres. In this case, for 23 acres. Each dwelling unit shall have its own separate septic system unless otherwise approved by the board. We did test, design, and got approval of a new septic system for this structure by the Bedminster Township Board of Health. No rent may be charged for any accessory dwelling unit created after the effective date and adoption of the ordinance, and we certainly agree to this. There's no intent today, and there's no intent to have any rental. It is for a family member. Attached dwelling unit needs to be within 150 feet of the principal residence or in an agricultural barn that is responsible lead occupant for the accessory dwelling. In this case, we're less than 150 foot from the principal structure. And the last item, number 7, is the access to the dwelling unit must be via the same driveway as the access to the principal structure. And that's the case here that it has. And because it is a family member, there's no additional driveways that are being proposed. There's a walking path that would be from the driveway to the special dwelling unit. They would park in the same place that the homeowner would park up by the garage area. And there's not a need to have a separate parking area for that accessory dwelling. We meet the language that's in the ordinance. And again, we conform to the setback standards that are in the R10 zone. Primary reason why this site was chosen is there's a beautiful paddock that's here, and we're not taking any trees down in order to build this, and it sets in at the rear of the paddock up against the back of this tree line or wooded area. I can't call it a tree line, but wooded area. The building itself, if you look at the architecture, is designed as a running shed, and it would have a peaked roof, and it would look like a running shed, and the vernacular of the horse landscaping along Spruce Hollow Road, and it does sit back 200 foot from the roof. So we think it's an appropriate place to put it. It does conform to the setback of the front yard and the side yard setback. That's the essence of it. We have 2 review letters, one by 4R Engineering, that there's really no substantive issues that are in there that we would not be able to comply with. We have Board of Health approval, stormwater calculations have been done. There's no minor comments to those that we will comply with. And then on the Vanish letter, there was a couple of comments having to do with why the location. I explained that. And the second thing, he just clarified that under 135014, accessory buildings are allowed in the front yard, but not in the front yard setback. So again, it's 200 foot. We do comply with the front yard setback, but it is in front of the principal structure. And again, concurring with what we put on the plans, we're in conformance with 13501.2. So we feel that there's not a deviation or any variance. And I think that's pretty much it. That's the basic proof that we're trying to do and to the board is show that we conform to your standards for the accessory dwelling unit in those 7 standards. So with that, I would ask for any questions or comments the board may have and how we comply.
Anyone from the board?
I have a question, Ron. Where is the septic system being placed for that cottage?
There's to the rear, there's both in here, and I believe the new one is out in this field right here. I believe that's where we tested, Lou.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the board?
And Ron, sorry, you said there's no parking by the new accessory dwelling. It's all going to be
Yeah,
on the
again, just
existing
because
paths?
of the personal situation there, it's hard to see with the tree line here, but you can see this split here, the driveway
Yep.
there, and the turnaround in front of the house, and then the garage over here. It would just be a walking path to that structure itself. They would still park in the garage area or in front of the house. There's no need to have a second parking area along the driveway for that.
Okay.
Any other board
sorry.
member?
Yeah.
No? Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the public?
Just need to scroll through. No?
Okay, we'll close it to the public. Looks pretty cut and dry to me.
I
Anybody?
I just have a question for,
Yes.
for Tom and do we have Frank?
Joanna.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Joanna's here.
So what's the issue with the family relation?
There's no issue with that as long as there's no charge of rent. I didn't raise an issue with the family.
So it's
But
not.
You can do that, as long as you do all the conditions of the conditional use, you can do this with a
Could be
family.
family or not family.
So
It
not,
could be,
okay.
right, it's not, it doesn't have to be family.
It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be family, it just can't, there's no rental being charged, is there,
no, That's right.
how is that enforced?
Very delicately, to say the least. Maybe it's forced in the failure to enforce, but I don't think so. I think that they're basically, it's only the pre-existing non-conforming accessory structures that can have a tenant who is a rental tenant, okay? But in keeping with, if we try to carry through on what people can do, if someone has a caretaker for their property and they do not charge that person rent, they would qualify from this restriction of the conditions of the conditional use.
Then they would have an IRS problem.
They might, and so would that person have other kinds of tax problems. But that being said, this appears to comply, or based on the testimony, does comply with all of the conditions of the conditional use. And I'm satisfied that by putting it 200 feet back, they also meet the front yard setback issue that Frank was highlighting, although not saying it was a problem, and Paul has explained to me that this is what you do in Bedminster, that you do allow accessory structures at this setback for a principal structure, even in a setting where the principal structure is behind the new accessory structure. That's a little different than some other towns, but that is what your ordinance allows. So if you were to carry this through, there are many situations, particularly in the R10 district, where people will have accessory structures, sheds, run-in sheds, barns, other things that are truly accessory structures and not an accessory dwelling unit, and they are sometimes located under the current ordinance 200 feet from the street line, and the main house may be further than that from the road, and that is allowed and somewhat common from what Paul explains to me.
And Tom, we have some of these that have mile-long driveways, you know, from the road to the house, the principal house, and there's plenty of structures in front of it. So the always notion was that different types of structures that comply with the ordinance can be in front of the principal structure.
Right. Just so, if you carry this through, there are situations in the R10 district where you are allowed to be on a flag lot as long as you have frontage on the street, and as long as your lot can achieve the circle, I think of 500 feet or something like that, where you place the principal structure. So we do have lots with a large acreage sometimes, and with almost no visibility from a public street. But this standard, the accessory dwelling unit conditional use is only in the R10 district. So if the board, I don't know if the board had any questions for the applicant, or,
Doesn't appear so.
okay?
Tom, the only other thing that we would ask is that they would like to get in the ground to construct this season, and if we could have permission to at least process a building permit application prior to the adoption of a resolution.
I'll put that in the motion, a draft motion. So if the board would entertain it, you could consider a motion to approve the conditional use and site plan application of the Criscola for the proposed accessory dwelling unit with the conditions of Paul's report and Frank's report. And this is effective this evening, so the applicant is authorized to proceed effective immediately, provided all other requirements and provisions of compliance are met. Is there such a motion?
Is that in our jurisdiction?
Absolutely, because it is a conditional use with no D variance. So the whole board is eligible on this type of case.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second. Okay.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Rogelius?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni?
Aye.
Ms. Orabano?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. First?
Aye.
Chairwoman Gotcha?
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board if they have any comments or questions tonight.
Only thing I have to report is that I've had discussions with Donna Rendero from the Office of New Jersey State Plan, and we are proceeding. Frank should be working on this. I'm not sure if Frank wants to talk about it, but working on the municipal self-assessment, which is really the first and main step in proceeding with plan endorsement. So that endorsement would indicate that Bedminster's master plan remains consistent with the state plan.
Okay.
And there's some benefits that come with it, economic benefits, opportunities for grants, and hopefully we can take advantage of it if we achieve plan endorsement for the second or third time around.
But I understand.
Okay, that's it.
Yep. Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yes, I have a question for the board and then a comment based on the answers. And I want to review and kind of go back to a previous application we approved, I think back in the summertime, and that's for the cider mill. Was anyone on the board up there at the cider mill around 6 p.m. on this past Saturday? No. Okay. So I want to report back that they significantly improved their parking situation, which is one of the things we looked at. But there were so many cars and so many people that were parked all the way up and down 206 outside of the premises of the cider mill. There were people pulling out onto the road, and the highway's going about 50 miles an hour. So I just want to say that I still think it's a dangerous situation. I do not know how to cure it. We did fix the parking problem for the number of cars that are on the lot at the time, but there's so many people that it's like overutilization. So I just wanted to bring it back to everyone's attention, just so that we improved something that we thought would work, and I think it's beyond what we improved now in terms of the overutilization. That's all.
Lou, were the parking spaces on the property, the grass parking, were they totally consumed or just hard to access?
It appeared to me that they were completely full. They were being used the way they were designed, and that the lot was completely full, or.
So could it be a combination of difficulty getting into the driveway and to the grassy parking areas?
It might be, but many of the cars that were parked on 206 were parked before you even get to the entrance of the cider mill, like a couple hundred, 200-300 feet, before you even get to the entrance. So I don't know if those were people who tried to get in and couldn't get in, so made a U-turn and came back around, or just decided, oh, it looks full, let me pull over right now.
Okay. Paul, any ideas or anything?
Well, there is a requirement that if there are traffic issues, that the owner has to deal with the police department, hire an officer if necessary. So what I can do is I can reach out to the chief, have his people keep an eye on it, see if they think there's things that they need to do relative to the parking and parking at 206, because obviously that's a problem.
Aren't there no parking signs
There are.
up on that both before and after?
Yeah.
Yeah, on 206.
Yeah, on 206, right.
There's so many people that are just not paying attention. It's the season,
Yeah.
people are just coming out to do activities.
I'll reach out to the chief.
Sometimes when you have, it's kind of like a special event problem. And sometimes when you have this kind of problem, it really isn't easily solved with zoning. It isn't easily solved. It's a good thing that something is popular, particularly in social distancing times. But the concept that Paul just described of the special police officer being hired by the property owner to try to police the improper parking before it happens and to try to direct traffic or slow traffic down where appropriate is one of the ways to deal with, for the government, by Bedminster, to address the problem, but also charge the property owner the cost of the special policeman.
They do that up at Reitman's Farm, if you ever go to, it's during the holiday season,
Yeah.
they have a lot of people, so they hire a police officer.
And Allstate as well.
Yeah.
They need a traffic officer. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. Well, it's a good problem for them, but
Yeah.
it's
It's a safety
It's a
issue.
safety issue, no question. Yeah. Okay, Lamington Farm Golf, we're still waiting for new plans to be submitted. Next week, the 14th, October 14th, we're going to have Route 206, Alfieri. We're going to hear that. Bed 1,
They're looking for November 11th.
November 11th. Okay, I guess that's okay. It is Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, that's right.
But I think we'll all be here. Did you have anything else that needed a determination of completeness, Paul, or are you
No.
caught up right now?
Yeah.
You're caught up, okay. And we have some other cases I know that are sort of pending, they're in the works.
Right, I've got, the
Developers.
next three, I've got updated documents that have been submitted, and I have to review those for completeness.
Okay, so we have Oaks Developers, Somerset Hills Shopping Center, and James Chester. So that's all we have.
Madam Chairman, I should just tell you, following up on what Larry said about the plan endorsement, this is going to seem new to you, but basically, plan endorsement is something you obtained, I think, around 2006, which you're one of the few municipalities that obtained it, which is that your master plan and land use development ordinances and your programs have been deemed by the State Planning Commission, for which I will make no editorial comment, to be totally consistent with the state plan, which has not been updated since 2003. So there really is no way that your plan could be inconsistent with the state plan because state plan wasn't changed and you were already found to be consistent, but the state as it is adopted regulations that are probably 150 pages long that say what you have to do to get plan endorsement again. It's mind-boggling, it's draconian, it's strange, but Larry has found a way perhaps to bob and weave and have them waive some of the things that would be required by these 150 pages. And one of the things that will be convenient to do before the end of the year, before January 11, 2022, the date upon which all endorsements and extensions will expire because of the pandemic emergency expiring, unless there's a new emergency, is to review at a public meeting with public notice a municipal self-assessment report, which Frank is working on with help from the county's prior planning efforts and your prior planning efforts and many days of hearings that you had about planning efforts, summarizing all that, putting it into a document and saying, we are still consistent with the state plan and please endorse us. And unfortunately, that is the process. So, you know, the more you can read in advance of that hearing and understand this sort of unusual procedure that's required and accept it, the more we'll be able to just quickly move into endorsement again. I don't know how long it'll take. I don't think they know how they're doing things, to tell you the truth, but they're doing things. And the pandemic has made this an extremely difficult process. So maybe I think it's 90 towns who submitted and 60 are still pending. I think maybe one has been approved. It's not going to be easy. But yours, if anybody's is easy, yours should be easy for the reasons I just described. So. That sort of explain it, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
And thank you, Janine, who's also assisting on putting all the materials together. Thank you, Janine.
And you have had a lot of planning efforts over the last 10 years, so we're trying to recapture that. All good.
Good. I just want to say to Joanna, tell Frank we miss him and we give him our best, and we look forward to him coming back soon.
He's in
I
Spain.
will. He's in Spain. Yeah.
He is in Spain. Well, good for him. I didn't know that, but
I think seeing the grandkids is the best medicine for him right
it
now.
probably
So.
is. I don't blame him. Okay, well, if you talk to him or you hear from him at all, just tell him we wish him well.
I will.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. We're done.
Yeah.
Might be a record.